Assassination of an opposition leader in Tunisia, where the Arab Spring began 2 years ago. Is this the end of the beginning? You're watching Arise News Hour, and that is our top story. There are protests and tear gas on the streets in Tunis tonight after the shooting of Chakri Belaid. He was the main opponent of the moderate Islamic government.
Plus, a coup plot against the Democratic Republic of Congo is foiled in South Africa. 19 people are arrested. The DRC government blames M23 rebels. Plus, a new foundation aimed at Africa's young people. Nigeria's former president tells us his hopes.
If for as long as you can still breathe the fresh air of God free, you must continue to do good.
And is this the sound of freedom? Music is back in the air in Mali.
In Tunisia, the cradle of the Arab Spring, a prominent secular politician has been assassinated. Chakri Belaid was gunned down by 3 men outside his home in Tunis. He's said to have received death threats recently.
Now, news of the assassination brought crowds of protesters into the streets of cities across Tunisia. Riot police in the capital have responded with tear gas and batons. Tunisia's president flew home from an overseas trip. He says his country will continue to fight what he calls enemies of the revolution. Thousands of protesters have poured into the streets of Tunis and Sidi Bouzid, the epicenter of uprising that swept Tunisia's president from power 2 years ago and sparked the Arab Spring. Shock, anger, dismay, and defiance here at the murder of a prominent politician who repeatedly and publicly warned of the dangers of Islamic rule.
This is a point of no return. We started shooting people. Yesterday it was Lotfi Nagade, today Chokri Belaid. They want to scare us. We just say, here we are, kill us if you want.
Chokri Belaid, seen here giving an interview last year, was gunned down outside his home. He died in hospital just hours ago. Tensions have been mounting in Tunisia between secularist politicians like Belaid and Islamist groups. Before cutting short his trip to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, the Tunisian leader paid homage to Belaid and told European lawmakers that his death would not scare secular reformers into silence.
Ce chemin, mesdames et messieurs, est pavé d'embûches.
This path is paved with pitfalls, many pitfalls, because we have a lot of enemies of this peaceful revolution and they've decided to make it fail. Verbal violence orchestrated, tombs burned to turn Muslims against Muslims, and today this odious assassination of a political leader who I knew well, who's been a friend to me for a long time, Chokri Belaid. This assassination took place today itself, with the knowledge that I was to speak to you. This is a threat. It's a letter that has been sent, but which will not be received. We refuse this letter, we refuse this message, and we will continue to unmask the enemies of the revolution and to continue our policies.
European Parliament President Martin Schulz called on Tunisians to continue the reforms of the Arab Spring, despite Belaid's assassination.
I wish to express my condolences to the family of Chokri Belaid and to the Tunisian people. We stand by your side in this grave hour. We appeal to the citizens of Tunisia to defend democracy and to maintain the spirit of unity that paved the way for the liberation of the country on January the 14th, 2011.
Tunisia was the first Arab country to oust its leader and hold free elections 2 years ago, helping spark the Arab Spring. Now, Antoine Lambros is the Tunis correspondent for Agence France Presse and joins us on the phone now from the center of the city. Antoine, if you can hear me, is there any indication who carried out this killing? Because obviously it's being seen as a political assassination.
Well, it surely looks like a contract killing. A man waited for Belaid, shot him at least 3 times, and an accomplice took off with him on a motorcycle. It's too early, though, to tell who carried out this murder, even though the relatives and political allies of the victim accuse the Islamic party Ennahda, which leads the Tunisian government. But the opposition has in the past pointed out that pro-government militias are usually responsible for these kinds of attacks. They've called for the dissolution of the League of the Protection of the Revolution, which is widely seen as a violent gang that answers to Ennahda, which the Islamic Party has always denied. This league in October killed a regional opposition leader in the south of the country, and the perpetrators have been jailed. Ennahda, of course, says that they have nothing to do with these militias and that they have nothing to do with today's murder.
Antoine, this is Debbie. I wonder if you can tell us what is the mood around Tunisia, and are demonstrations likely to gather steam because of this?
Well, people on the streets are obviously very moved and very angry because, I mean, it's a first for Tunisia. Even before the revolution, killings like that didn't take place. So today, the day started with calm demonstrations throughout the country that quickly turned into riots, with the offices of Ennahda being burned down in several cities. In Tunis, mobs of demonstrators fought the police that fired tear gas at them on the Bourguiba Avenue. Tonight, things look like they've calmed down, but only time will tell whether the momentum will gather or not. So far, these demonstrations have been spontaneous and not organized. Right now, I'm looking at the Bourguiba Avenue, and there are no more clashes, but there's a kind of a cat-and-mouse game between protesters and policemen in the surrounding streets. Anything is possible. In December 2010, no one would have thought that the suicide of a street vendor in Sidi Bouzid will bring the Arab Spring.
And I just want to make a note, Antoine, as you've been talking, we've been watching pictures of what has been happening in Tunisia today in reaction to the assassination.
Antoine, at the same time, President Marzouki has warned that tension might actually lead to a civil war. How real is this?
This is something he's said several times in the past few months. Basically, every time that tension flared up in one or the other cities of the country. So far, though, we haven't seen any use of lethal force in clashes since the revolution. So civil war seems a bit far off right now, but clashes like that have certainly been building up since the summer. So anarchy is not far away, the civil war a bit further.
All right. Antoine Lambros, thank you so much for being with us. Now, Dr. Ian Patel is an expert in state crime and human rights in Tunisia and other parts of Africa, and he joins us now live in the studio. Dr. Patel, thanks for being with us. Actually, I'm going to steal a question that my colleague Jeff asked you before we came on camera, and that is, are you surprised by this?
Well, I think this is only the latest in a series of violent events to happen in Tunisia since the revolution in 2011, and I suppose the most remarkable thing is that in the months immediately after the revolution there seemed to be a lot of significant progress, and Tunisia is still in the middle of redrafting its constitution and electing a new government, but these processes have been fraught right from the beginning, and there has still been a lot of protest against what many civil society members and members of the press among opposition politicians think is a continuing corruption in Tunisia. So to answer your question, I think this is not surprising, but the fact that this is an outright assassination of an active politician is cause for a good deal of concern.
Doc, the coalition is crumbling, splintering. It's almost, I guess, non-existent now. It's falling apart. Is this phase 2 of that Arab Spring that began 2 years ago in Tunisia? Is this phase 2, you think?
Well, I think it's very hard to say at this point. I mean, the most obvious thing about today's event is that the politician was a member of the left coalition. So this is a secular politician, which brings to mind the ongoing tension between secular parts of Tunisian politics and Islamist. And obviously the leading Tunisian party at the moment is Ennahda, which is a moderate Islamist party. And I believe that that the assassination today took place at about 8:15 in the morning, Tunisian time. And already by 9 a.m. there were suggestions that Ennahda, the leading party, was behind the attack. But I think that at this point it's very difficult to know for sure exactly who is responsible. We know that the divisions between secular parts of Tunisian society and Islamist ones run very, very deep and have done for decades. And we know that Tunisian politics has been divided along these lines for many, many years. So the question is, which groups specifically are responsible, and are they in the pro-Islamist camp, or are they in the secular camp? I mean, there certainly seems to be a hostility towards Islamist rule in Tunisia, and Tunisia seems to be undergoing a crisis about its identity, and it's trying to reconcile these very deeply held secular traditions with equally deeply held Islamist traditions.
And we're going to have to leave it right there. Dr. Ian Patel, thank you very much for being with us. We do appreciate it. 19 Congolese people have been arrested in a remote part of South Africa's Limpopo province. They're reported to have been plotting a coup against President Joseph Kabila and the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Officials in the DRC blame the M23 rebels, but the South African investigators say they've not yet found the connection. The M23 rebels have been fighting to overthrow the government of President Joseph Kabila. There have been accusations that they are supported by Rwanda and Uganda. Our correspondent John Chiaman joins us live via Skype from Johannesburg. John.
Hi, Debbie.
John, hello. Are you there? Has there been, I've read conflicting reports about who these 19 people are, whether or not they are associated with M23 or not. Do you have any clarity about who these 19 people are?
Not at all at this stage. The National Prosecution Authority in South Africa, which investigates such matters, has only said that among the group there are 2 members who are senior members of the M23. But they have also said they have not found a direct link with the M23 group. I think the important thing in this case is not so much what the group is, but what this case signifies for South Africa, which to many people looks like a springboard for these sort of destabilizing military activities in Africa. The government itself has taken a lot of measures to clean up that image. And these people are going to appear in court tomorrow, precisely under an act, a law that was passed in 1998 under Nelson Mandela as president. This is the Foreign Military Assistance Act. This was to try and clean up South Africa's image, which in the 1990s was that of a country that bred mercenaries that were taking advantage of conflicts across Africa. Sierra Leone in the 1990s, as well as Angola. So no, we don't exactly know who these people are, but we will probably know more of their identities when they appear in the Pretoria Magistrate Court tomorrow.
That is John Chiaman, our correspondent in Johannesburg via Skype. John, thank you very much.
And staying in South Africa, the price of fuel is rising again. Our economics and business editor Michael Wilson has the story. Michael.
Thanks, Jeff. More pain at the pumps for South Africans starting today. All grades of petrol have gone up by 41 cents a litre to 11 11.92 rand. Diesel prices have also risen. Analysts say this could be a very expensive year for consumers. Added to rising electricity prices, not only will the cost of fuel be higher, the cost of vehicle licensing and toll fees will also go up. One of the factors contributing to the rise in fuel prices, a weak rand. We'll have more on that from our correspondent in Johannesburg very shortly. Now to the stock markets, and South Africa's All Share Index, the Johannesburg one, fell today. MTN, one of the biggest fallers after it announced plans to take over its Cyprus subsidiary. Vodacom also declined after sales figures disappointed investors. In Nigeria, shares of Union Bank climbed to a 17-week high on expectations of high dividends. Kenya, shares finished just slightly higher. Onto the commodities. Oil. Now, Brent's considered to be holding up quite well. Remember that figure I gave at the beginning of all this? 110 barrels a year at year start, $110 a barrel. It was off slightly because of ample supply. But once again, the optimism about the global economy is very supportive for oil. Gold's glister, well, it's a bit range-bound. The more people want equities, the less the need to shelter in gold's safe haven status. Platinum, the star performer, a 4-month high and near its best level since September 2011, and felt to be keeping strong on South Africa's supply problems and a drop in exports from Russia. Quick look at the currencies. US dollar stronger against all the main African currencies. $1 will buy just over 8.9 rand or 157 naira. In Kenya, it gets you 87 shillings and 60 cents. So, motorists paying more at the pump in South Africa. The price hike went into effect today. I spoke to our correspondent, Tsitsi Bishop in Johannesburg, and asked her what's behind the increase.
Normally, the price hike is caused by the rand's weakness and the oil price weakness. We've seen the rand has been very weak in the previous months, and the oil price has also been very strong. Most of the time when the oil price is strong, we rely on the rand to actually help us to be able to afford the oil price and bring it back into South Africa. But this time around, it did not happen. It did not happen. The oil price is too strong, the rand is too weak. How is this affecting your big manufacturing businesses? Okay. I had a chance to speak to one of our CEO of commerce in this country, and he said, you know, to put it bluntly, we are facing a very bleak year. 2013 is going to be a very bleak year for us. One of the reasons is that they rely very much on diesel, which if you look at the numbers, it looks cheaper than the petrol price. The petrol price is going up by 41 cents a litre. Diesel is going up by 17 cents a litre. But it costs litres and litres of diesel to fill the trucks that transport goods from the coastal areas inland. And because of that, the price of goods they're trying to bring inland, where the markets are, where the money is, where there's purchasing power, is going to escalate. Already the price of food is very high. He says that December season, where they were expecting a bumper sale, it did not happen because the price of goods have escalated. You go into the supermarkets, you try and buy your groceries, and you realize that the inflation numbers do not really tally with the real price on your packets of food. And he says this is what is depressing them, and they're trying to get a meeting with the government to say, can you help? I know the government in this country has never been in favor of subsidizing industries or companies or business when things are tough, but they're saying, let's look at other forms of your intervention. For instance, if you can't do anything with the petrol price, let's focus on the energy price in terms of electricity. We cannot allow electricity to go by 16% in the coming 5 years when we also are incurring costs in the petrol price of transporting our goods here. Can you see the price of fuel actually coming down, or will it increase again, do you think, in the near future? It depends on two things, Michael, as I said before. If the oil price does not come down, the price of petrol is unlikely to come down. If the rand doesn't strengthen, the price of petrol is unlikely to come down. Those are the only two factors that are standing between the price of petrol and diesel for South Africa. South Africa has what we call a slate levy, which normally cushions consumers from the ups and downs of the price of petrol. But in this case, it has been absorbed because of the weaker rand. It has been used and used and used, overused. Now, there's nothing in the kitty to subsidize the price of petrol to cushion consumers from the increases. City Bishop in Johannesburg, thank you very much indeed.
Now, with the markets offering little security or indeed profit for investors, more people are pouring their cash into alternative investments, especially, if you can afford it, artwork. This 1932 painting by Pablo Picasso went under the Hammer Sotheby's auction house in London last night. It fetched just under £29 million. That's around $45 million US. The portrait, one of Picasso's mistresses, is just the first in a series of high-end contemporary art going on sale this year. Prices have been soaring in recent years as buyers from Russia, China and the Middle East snap up prices for their growing collections. That's business for now. Still to come, a custom-made smartphone just for the African market. The story coming up later.
All right, Mike, thank you so much. An alleged rape victim and a journalist have been sentenced to prison in Somalia. They were convicted of making false accusations and insulting the government after she claimed she was assaulted by security forces. As they were driven to court, they were almost certain of the fate that awaited them. Laila Ali Osman, the alleged rape victim, and journalist Abdiaziz Abdinoor Ibrahim in the dock. Laila claims she had been assaulted by Somali security forces and told Abdiaziz her story. He never published the interview, but they were both sentenced for making a false accusation and insulting a government body. The judge sentenced them both to a year in prison. Laila will have to serve her sentence later as she is caring for her young child. 3 other people, including Laila's husband, were released. The head of the National Union of Somali Journalists, Mohammed Ibrahim, told reporters that the verdict was unjust, that it was not a crime to interview a woman. The case has sparked concern from around the world over sexual violence and press freedom in Somalia. The country's prime minister has said the authorities will do more to protect rape victims and promised to reform Somali armed forces and the judiciary. But any action could come too late for Laila Ali Osman and Abdiaziz Abdinoor Ibrahim. We are joined now by journalist Laila Ali, who has been covering this story closely. She joins us live via Skype from Nairobi. Laila, I think I want to first ask you, what is your reaction to this verdict? Are you outraged?
I'm completely outraged. I'm still very much stunned from everything, in fact, yeah.
Is there any indication what the government based this verdict on? Is there evidence that you can point to say, oh, this is why they brought down this conviction?
To be honest, no, because the charge was that him and the alleged rape victim that he interviewed had somehow offended the dignity of the state. That was, the charge from the police. But he actually never published his report. So I'm not entirely sure how, they could accuse him of offending the dignity of the state. But what we do know is they've accused him and the lady of helping me report the Al Jazeera, helping me report the story that I filed for Al Jazeera, which is not the case. I mean, Al Jazeera have publicly denied that he's linked with them or has worked for them. I have denied it. I wrote a letter to his lawyer saying, I do not know him. He never helped me. But apparently this hasn't helped.
Certainly many believe, and I think it's probably correct, that this will discourage future assault victims from coming forward, as well as discourage journalists from feeling free to report information. Is this verdict going to change the way you work as a journalist?
Well, I don't live in Somalia, so for me it's very different. But certainly for those who, live in Mogadishu and Somalia, they have to think about themselves. And for victims, it's especially worse because rape is very much a taboo subject within the Somali society. People don't talk about it. And I think now with this verdict, that will only worsen. Victims will be much more scared to come forward and say, I was raped, because not only will you be stigmatized, but now you could also end up behind jail.
And of course, the Prime Minister has promised reform both for the Somali armed forces as well as to do more to protect rape victims. You feel confident that that anything will change?
Well, like many Somalis, I was very optimistic about this new government, the Prime Minister, the President. But my hope has been shaken. It's not enough to say you will, introduce reforms. This is a real case that's happening right now on the ground, and they need to intervene because the way this case was handled was completely inappropriate. This woman was named, which was a mistake. She was made to take part in a press conference. Further mistake. This journalist has been arrested and sentenced to a year in prison for simply interviewing this woman. So these are things that need addressing right now. It's not enough to say you're going to introduce reforms.
Laila Ali reporting via Skype from Nairobi. Laila, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
President Obama is going to make his first state visit to Israel this spring. Our Washington correspondent Colin Campbell is on the line from the U.S. Capitol. Colin, a U.S. president visiting Israel in the past was no big deal. This one is a bit noteworthy, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and that's because President Obama has been criticized for distancing himself from Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This visit underscores that the U.S. does have an alliance with Israel, that it stands behind Israel, and the president is going out to basically discount his detractors and his critics for saying that he tried to distance himself from Israel and that he doesn't really back them in the way that his supporters would like him to. So this is a big statement here. I think that people here in the U.S. who are paying attention or who stand behind the lobby here in Washington will be pleased with this move. Of course, this may also upset the balance in Palestine among Palestinians, seeing President Obama visit Israel, not paying as much attention to those in Palestine. So this is definitely something that's controversial if you are paying attention to what's happening in the Middle East.
Colin, it's Jeff Koinange. Let me jump in there and ask you, there's another story coming out of Washington about a secret U.S. drone base in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, this is a drone base that would also look for what are deemed as enemy combatants in Saudi Arabia. Of course, we know that under President Obama, we've seen the drone program expand quite substantially. We have talked about a potential drone base in Niger. We've talked about drones flying in Pakistan and in possibly other places. But what this drone base would do is also try to scope out possible terrorist suspects, and it would use intel that it captures from these drones to come back to Washington to try to decipher how they're going to crack down on the war on terror, how they're going to identify people who might be sympathizers with Al-Qaeda. So this is also something that's not widely talked about right now in Washington, but it is a strong possibility.
Colin, thanks so much as always. That's Colin Campbell there reporting from Washington, D.C. In Mali, the defense minister says French forces are embroiled in a real war with terrorists around the town of Gao. Islamists were driven out a few weeks ago, but there are continuing skirmishes. The former Nigerian president Olusegun Obasanjo has told Arise News he is confident that the world will find the funds to ensure peace in Mali. He joined me earlier in the studio to announce the launch of his new foundation aimed at improving education, employment of women, and civil society in Africa. But first, I asked him about European involvement in Mali.
The Mali situation is the problem not only of Africans, but of the world. And that we have a power in the world to join hands with Africa to do what needs to be done. I think it's a welcome idea.
Can those Islamists be driven right out, Mr. President? Because the stories are saying that those northern regions, the mountains of Mali, have now become the Tora Bora of Africa. It's where the Islamists, it's where Al-Qaeda, all these remnants, that's where they're hiding out, waiting for their day to strike back. Can they be eradicated? Can the forces do what they need to do?
I believe that the joint effort of the African forces, the French forces, and the Malian troops will do what needs to be done. What will be necessary is that at the right time, and the right time should be starting from now, the Malian troops must be trained and be equipped to be able to handle the security and defense of Mali from any incursion from anywhere.
The will is there, obviously. Is the money there? Because at the African Union, only about 50 million was raised a couple of weeks ago. The Europeans chipped in with another 400 million. We need, or the Malians need, close to $1 billion. Can that money be raised?
I believe the money can be raised. The point is that if we have a situation anywhere in the world that threatens the security of the world, and what was happening in northern Mali threatens not only the security of Africa, but the security, global security, then the world, the international community should be able to raise the money necessary to deal with the issue of security. Of course, the issue of security is very important, particularly physical security, and of course, a number of other aspects of security that are also very important.
Yeah, 6 months, Mr. President. Mali's been given 6 months to hold elections. July 31st is the date that was given. Is that enough time to rewrite a constitution, register voters, and go to the polls? Is 6 months enough?
I believe it. If the will is there, it is enough. Nigeria did it in about 9 months. And Nigeria, with all its complexity and its diversity, we achieved it. So I believe, because they are not starting from ground zero, must have been certain things on the ground, but the old political parties have not all been wiped out. They will have to, of course, dust up their whatever, their manifestos and their organization and all that. So I believe it can be done within 6 months.
Mr. President, the reason you're in London, the launching of the Olusegun Obasanjo Foundation, advancing human security for all. Yeah. Tell us about it.
Well, one of the things that I started doing when I left public office was to build a presidential library, more or less in the tradition of the American presidential libraries, which really is a passive museum and archive. I think in recent time, even in America, they have brought in what I would call the active part. Either you take a theme or a subject that becomes the theme upon which the activities of the library is attached. And in our own case, we have taken human security.
You just refuse to retire, don't you, Mr. President? I mean, all these years since you left office, you refuse to retire.
Well, there's no retirement in doing good in life, is there? Now, if for as long as you can still breathe the fresh air of God free, you must continue to do good. And looking after human security, the foundation we are launching on Friday, we have chosen 5 areas to concentrate on. In the area of education, we have narrowed to girl-child education. In the area of health, we have narrowed to non-communicable diseases. Some of these diseases people used to think that they are diseases of the rich, but now we know that high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, sickle cell, it's not disease of the rich, it's disease of anybody who has it. Whether you talk of education, of health, of youth, or whatever else you talk about, leadership at the operational level, at the conceptual level, at the public and private level, at the civil society, the type of our own foundation level, whether it's a small foundation, medium-sized foundation, or large foundation, leadership matters. So these 5 areas we are taking together.
Mr. President, we wish you luck in your foundation, and I wish I could be you when I grow up. All this energy.
Yeah, well, you remember I keep telling you that God is a Nigerian. Maybe when you migrate to Nigeria, you will make it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Well done.
You're watching the News Hour on Arise. Our top stories. There are protests on the streets of Tunisia after opposition leader Chokri Belaid was assassinated. The country's president has flown home to deal with the reaction. The government of the Democratic Republic of Congo has blamed the M23 rebel movement of being behind a coup plot which was foiled by South African police. 19 people are accused of trying to overthrow the DRC leader Joseph Kabila. They are now in custody. Also in South Africa, petrol prices have gone up by more than 3%. That's 41 cents a liter. The weak rand is the cause.
And for those of you who are keen followers of the African Cup of Nations, the first semi-final clash between Nigeria and Mali. Final score, Nigeria 4, Mali 1. We'll have more in our sports section a little later in the program. Also ahead on the show, could this be the sound of freedom? Mali's musicians are back on the streets. And on the air, we have a report.
And that's right now. There are many signs that life is starting to return to normal in Mali after French forces last week liberated the ancient city Timbuktu from 10 months of militant Islamic rule. As Arise's Tina Millman reports, the sound of Mali's world-famous music is once again being heard in the streets.
Women are dancing again in the streets of Timbuktu. During almost a year of Islamic rule, Al-Qaeda-linked militants outlawed smoking. They ordered women to stay veiled or stay home. And they outlawed both the playing and the broadcasting of music. Radio Buktu is one of Timbuktu's main broadcasters. The extremists smashed all of their equipment. For 10 months, Radio Buktu broadcast religious sermons and political propaganda. Calls to prayer were the only singing allowed.
They forced their agenda on us. Whether the messages were true or false, we were obliged to air them as we had a weapon to the head. The last message was that Kona had been seized.
Since last month's French-led military intervention, Radio Buktu has gone back to broadcasting music. And the sweet sounds of Mali's world-famous music scene can be heard around the city once more. Tina Millman, Arise News.
And now for a roundup of some of the other stories making headlines today. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad appeared to have a shoe thrown at him during his state visit to Egypt. Scores of Sunni Muslims had gathered to protest the Iranian president's continued support of Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. To throw a shoe is a sign of extreme disrespect in Arab culture. Mexican authorities are investigating the rape of 6 Spanish tourists in Acapulco. They were reportedly bound and gagged by their assailants, who also stole laptops, phones, and cash from the victims. So far, no arrests have been made. And the French tanker hijacked by suspected Nigerian pirates off the Ivory Coast over the weekend has been released. The French Foreign Ministry confirmed all 17 crew members are safe. Around 200 tons of the tanker's diesel fuel cargo was stolen.
And turning our attention to business, there's been some jitters in the market today. Our economics and business editor, Michael Wilson, has all the details. Mike.
Debbie, thanks very much indeed. Let's have a look at European stocks in general. And they've been in retreat today, according to some of the main investors. Earnings are being achieved, but it's looking very difficult at the moment. There's just little appetite to buy. As far as the currencies are concerned, as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of worries that the euro is getting too strong, soaring 20% against the yen in just 3 months, underpinned by the feeling that Europe's sovereign debt crisis is fading. A strong euro makes the eurozone's exports more expensive, and that threatens growth. The pound is pinned down to a 6-month low against the dollar, and further losses are expected if the new central bank governor flags more aggressive aggressive policy to support the UK economy. UK Central Bank Interest Rate Setting Committee reports at noon. That's June GMT tomorrow. This is the picture for Wall Street after yesterday's rally. Stocks are now sort of slipping into the red. The optimism we saw at the start of the year appears to be losing steam, and traders are waiting for clearer indications before weighing their next move. Let's cross live to our correspondent, Chitra Norbat in New York. And Chitra, first of all, let's talk about the US Postal Service. They have to save money. What are they actually going to do about that?
Michael, the U.S. Postal Service may stop delivering first-class mail on Saturdays. However, packages will still be delivered. The agency is expected to announce later today that these planned cuts will start in August, saving the struggling service about $2 billion each year. Last year, the U.S. Postal Service incurred a record $16 billion in losses. Businesses and the general public may have to retool their mail expectations. So, Michael, that important business document or private love letter with Shakespearean sonnets may be delayed in reaching you.
Oh dear, have to send it by email then in that case, won't you? Now let's talk about Time Warner. They're amongst a number of corporates whose earnings are quite pleasing, aren't they? What's going on there?
Time Warner, which is one of the world's largest media companies, reported net income fourth quarter profits, which were ahead of analyst expectations, and higher dividends. Time Warner, they own the CNN and TNT cable networks, HBO magazines like Time and People magazine, as well as the movie division. Driving earnings are ad revenues and increased subscription revenue from HBO. On the magazine side, Time Inc. is undergoing a restructuring and cutting about 500 jobs.
Now here, like you, I suppose we hear this myth, or maybe the truth, that there is a glass ceiling in companies for female executives. And yet there's quite an interesting report out today, isn't there, which concerns CFOs, chief financial officers, although one gets the idea that maybe, well, the big jobs are still with the men. Is that about right?
Women chief financial officers are at record level highs in the U.S., according to a Bloomberg survey. There are 54 women CFOs at S&P 500 index companies compared to 40 last year. The CFO is typically responsible for the accounting, risk management, and treasury functions. To give you a sense, there are women CFOs at BlackRock, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and Chevron. Some believe that this is a path to the CEO chair, and an example is Indra Nooyi. She's Pepsi CEO. And before that, Indra Nooyi was that company's CFO for 6 years. With that said, there still aren't too many women CEOs at top U.S. companies.
Things will change, Chitra, don't you worry about that. Now, the world's largest software maker, Microsoft, has turned its attention to the African smartphone market. The company has launched a Windows 8 Huawei phone designed specifically for consumers in African countries. $150, it's cheaper than other brands and has swappable batteries for users without easy access to electricity. I spoke to Matthew Reed via Skype. He's an analyst at Informa Telecoms and Media in Dubai, and he's been following the launch of the low-cost smartphone for Africa.
Well, I think it's becoming increasingly important, and this is demonstrated by this new Microsoft initiative. Google, for example, has already been very active on the continent for a number of years. And the reason why Africa is becoming increasingly important to big tech players is the huge growth in the telecom and technology sector on the continent in the past few years. In parts has been unleashed by the new submarine cables that have connected Africa to the rest of the world. There's been huge growth in mobile connectivity. We currently have about 750 million mobile subscribers in Africa, and that number is set to rise to about 1 billion by 2016. And there's also strong growth in demand for data services, including the internet and all that goes with that. And yet, activity is still at quite a low base on the continent, so there is much more growth to come.
There's clearly a need for a cheaper smartphone like this one. The Huawei is, though, $150. That's still quite expensive, isn't it?
Yes, I agree. There is both your points there. There is definitely a demand for more affordable data devices in order to facilitate, to support that potential growth in data on the continent. But But you're also right. I mean, I think this device, although by some standards it might seem affordable, I think for its target market, it's still a little bit at the pricey end. Its reported price is $150.
Now, given that Google are also involved in this sort of market, do you think that competition might bring the price down in the end, or at least when Microsoft perhaps sells more phones?
That's already happening, yes. We're already seeing, data-enabled devices becoming cheaper and cheaper on the continent. There are manufacturers such as Huawei, again, have been doing very well with their own devices. There was a device called the Huawei Idios, which has done especially well in Kenya, for example. So, yes, you're right. Economies of scale and competition will help to bring down prices and make devices and services more affordable.
Matthew Reid, thank you very much. It's all about the new smartphone for Africa. Let's hope it sells a lot and comes down in price, I think, is the most important thing. Now, cocoa is a big earner in Africa, with exports from the west of the continent accounting for more than 60% of the world's cocoa supply. But while there's a steady demand for the beans internationally, chocolate makers are struggling with one market. They can't get into China. It's a prime destination for Western products, but when it comes to chocolate, the Chinese do not have a sweet tooth, consuming the equivalent of just 2 chocolate bars each a year. The Japanese eat 22 bars each a year, the Americans eat 88 bars each year, and the Germans eat an average 164 bars each year. That's about a bar every 2 days, isn't it, really?
How about the English, Michael? How about the English?
Well, I mean, we are addicted to it because I was going to ask you this. I think that here our chocolate is slightly sweeter, certainly than a Hershey bar, for example. I don't know about your experience, whereas it is quite milky and sweet. I just find that once you start it, you can't stop it. When's your time? Do you ever do chocolate during the day? Remember, I'm in the same office as you, and if you lie, I'll know.
I know. Have you ever seen me eat chocolate?
Not yet.
Yeah, I like chocolate, but I don't love chocolate, so I can take it or leave it.
Hey, say that again. That's good. You ought to be in an ad. What about you, Jeff?
What about you?
I mean, are we weak in this? You know, once you start, you get going. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm chocolate enough as it is.
Okay.
Then I guess that makes me milk chocolate.
You're in the ads, he does the gags. Very good indeed. We love it.
And you would be?
I'd be milk chocolate.
Very obvious. All right. I think we need to stop right there.
I think we should move on.
Michael, thank you so much. Final preparations are underway for Rio de Janeiro's annual carnival. Sometimes called the best party on earth, the carnival will be led by a sequin and feather-clad King Momo.
Indeed.
But as AFP's Madeline Raphael, you're still thinking about chocolate, right?
I am. The fabulous King Momo is an unassuming bank clerk for the rest of the year.
Milton Jr. looks like any other bank clerk, disappearing in the crowd as he leaves his office after a day's work. But under his everyday suit, there's a Rio celebrity, Momo, the Carnival King, who reigns over the city for 5 days of the world's biggest outdoor festival.
When Carnival arrives, I make a lot of appearances in the media and on TV. In the world of samba, everyone knows me, but when they recognise me, they say, "You're so different. You look so serious and colourless in a work suit." And yes, I am different.
Every year, Rio's mayor symbolically gives King Momo the keys to the city. Throughout Carnival, he's at every big parade and samba show, dancing with everyone from children to celebrities. He's seen here last year with Brazilian architect Oscar Niemeyer, who died in December. The symbol of excess, King Momo is elected every year for his samba skills, good humour and party spirit. Even at home, his crown and sceptre aren't far away. He's on his way to a rehearsal at one of the biggest samba schools as they prepare to strut their stuff in front of 70,000 spectators at the mythical Sambadrome.
This moment means everything to me. You enter the Sambadrome happy, at a party where everyone is hugging each other and clapping and dancing with you. And you communicate the joy by dancing samba. You can greet everyone, introduce the Queen and the princesses of the Carnival. It's great.
As Brazil's 2013 carnival season approaches, Milton's schedule fills up with last-minute preparations, but he still makes time for his family.
He never says he'll stop. He's tired, but he loves it. He's resting now, and we help him at home.
Milton Jr. has reigned over Rio Carnival since 2009, beating out other King Momo hopefuls for 4 years straight. An impressive feat in samba-mad Brazil, and yet he has no intention of stopping there. He says he hopes to keep the crown another few years and dance the samba at the head of the Carnival parade until Rio hosts the 2016 Olympic Games.
From samba to sports. There will be celebrations long into the night in Nigeria this evening. That's because the Super Eagles cruised into the Africa Cup of Nations final, and they did it in style. Nigeria thrashed Mali 4-1 at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban a short while ago. Our sports reporter Ife Fatunasi will be joining us live in the studio with all the reaction from South Africa in just a moment. In other football news, all eyes will be on a sold-out Wembley Stadium tonight as part of the celebrations to mark 150 years of the Football Association. England face 5-time World Cup winners Brazil in an international friendly. Now, it's been 23 years since England last beat Brazil. While the game is supposed to be non-competitive, both sides will be looking to use it as an opportunity to put down an early marker ahead of the World Cup next year. Just days after completing his move to AC Milan, Mario Balotelli is at the center of racism storm in Italy. Milan Vice President Paolo Berlusconi, the younger brother of club president Silvio, was caught on this video by local reporters using a racist remark to describe the former Manchester City striker. Now back to the Africa Cup of Nations. Burkina Faso will be looking to upset the odds once more by beating Ghana to reach the final of the tournament. The Black Stars of Ghana go into their 4th consecutive semi-final tonight with no injury worries. The winner of that match will face Nigeria in the final on Sunday. Our sports reporter Ife Fatunase joins us now. Ife, good news for Nigeria fans across the continent and the globe.
Good news indeed, Jeff. When I spoke to you yesterday, I said this match was going to be close. I said Nigeria would win maybe 1-0. It was completely different. 4-1. Wow. The goals just kept coming. In the first half, Nigeria scored 3 just in succession. It was amazing. 3 goals. In the second half, Nigeria scored again, Mali scored again. Nigeria actually scored another goal, which could have made it 5-1, but it was disallowed. So it ended up 4-1.
Looks like they found their form.
It just kept coming. I just saw how many goals. I actually expected it to be 8-1. I mean, it was just amazing. But, you know, what's amazing, actually, Stephen Keshi, who is the Nigerian coach, he actually used to be the Malian coach. He used to be the Malian head coach. So at the end of the match, while all his players were congratulating each other, he was actually commiserating with his former players, saying, you know, exactly, it was so sweet. But if he takes Nigeria all the way on Sunday, if they win it, he will become only the second person that's won the Africa Cup of Nations as a player and as a coach. But I wasn't there. I'm here with you. But let's have a chat with somebody who was there. We've got Jairo Pacheron, who joins us on the line now. Jairo, what was the atmosphere like?
Yes, good evening. Well, atmosphere was fantastic, as you can imagine. Before the match, you know, both group of fans, you know, the Super Eagles fans and the Mali fans, you know, they were all up for the match and looking forward for a great match. It was just stunning how the beginning of the match went. You know, the first half with 3 goals from Nigeria, which I think no one was expecting it, and that just drove the whole stadium and the Super Eagles fans crazy at the stadium. It was a fantastic atmosphere, and I think that the Super Eagles deserve it. They did propose from the first minute of the match, and I think they did the best today so far, after beating Ivory Coast, of course.
Jairo, it's Jeff Koenig. Let me jump in there and ask you, who would you think Nigeria would prefer to see in the finals, Burkina Faso or Ghana?
Well, it's a difficult one. You know, Burkina has played good football in this. I think most of the teams display good football in this African Cup of Nations. You know, you didn't expect, you know, the likes of Cape Verde going through to the quarterfinals. But I believe I think it will be Ghana, and I think it will be an amazing final between Nigeria and Ghana.
I mean, I was going to say, Stephen Keshi, if he can do it, if he can take it all the way, it would be amazing that he's able to win the Africa Cup of Nations as a player and as a coach. That would be an unbelievable feat.
Yeah, I think that, on one hand, he deserved it. I think since he took over the team, he has worked hard on the home team, on the home-based players, and that has shown. And the new players that he brought into the team, if you see from previous teams, you have Owe Mikel and, 2 or 3 players, and all the other players, or even some home team players, are in the first 11 starting players, which is an amazing achievement. But as you said, I think it would be amazing if he can, achieve having won the Africa Cup of Nations as a player and now as a coach.
And Jaro, I imagine you're going to be at the final. Have you got your ticket already?
Definitely. I'm here. I came in today from London. I'm based in London, and I came because I told them, we had the last time I saw them was in Faro when we played Cape Verde, the last match, one of the last matches of the preparation, which I organized for the team. And I told them, I will see you at the quarterfinals because I believe that we'll get to the finals. I couldn't get my visa on time, so I just managed to came for the semi-final today, and I'm staying all the way to the final.
Thank you so much, Jaro. Enjoy the final.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, Ife, I want to go back to that friendly match between England and Brazil. It's just a demonstration, if you will. But do you think there's some bragging rights there?
Of course. I mean, it's Brazil. Come on. England, I don't imagine they've got any chance, really. But, I mean, if they're able to take a victory, they will be bragging about that. They've been bragging about them winning the World Cup back in 1966. So.
That would be so good. That would be Ife Fontanesi.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Ife.
Always so great. A young disabled boy in Afghanistan is hoping to defy all odds and compete in the next Paralympic Games. Abbas Karimi hopes to win a medal in Brazil next year, but first he needs to win over the support of his country. Lance Santos has this inspirational story.
Born with no arms, this is the 14-year-old boy causing a splash. Despite being born disabled, Abbas Karimi has ambitions to earn a gold medal for Afghanistan at the World Paralympic Games next year. If he gets the support he needs, the teenager will be the first Afghan teen to represent his country as a swimmer. Abbas trains every day, and the only thing stopping him from achieving his dreams is the support of his nation.
I urge people to support me so I can participate in the World Paralympic Games. I would like to achieve a medal for my country. I also want to be a symbol for those who are disabled like me. My advice is that they should not be depressed about their disability, and they should not suffer for being disabled.
Decades of conflict and poverty have prevented a large number of disabled Afghans from pursuing sport. They often face victimization and discrimination in a society where disability is perceived as a weakness. But Karim's trainer and Water Polo Federation head Qasim Hamidi has no doubt about the youngster's talent.
I urge the government to support Abbas. I challenge that if Abbas gets full support, he will be a medal winner for Afghanistan in the 2014 Paralympics.
And swimming without arms is not the only challenge Abbas has had to overcome. The youngster uses his feet to eat and drink, to use his mobile phone, and he even drives himself to practice. He also studies English at a school in Kabul, and his outlook on life has clearly won the admiration of everyone he meets. Lance Santos, Arise News.
Up here.
Okay. Now here's a story that the ladies are really going to like.
Or anybody.
David Beckham running in his underwear. Now the Paris Saint-Germain player stars in the new H&M ad promoting their bodywear range.
He's seen chasing his clothes wearing just his underpants. I can't get through this with a straight face. The commercial was directed by Guy Ritchie while David was still living in Los Angeles.
David Beckham
Are
in his
impressed,
underwear.
Michael?
The only thing I'd like to see David Beckham running in is a pair of Manchester United shorts again, quite honestly. I care not for the range of underwear because I couldn't possibly confess that in public, but I just like to see him back playing for Manchester United. And it's interesting he said that he went to Paris Saint-Germain, they said the only English club he would play for would be Man United. I think that's real loyalty.
Yeah.
Now, I have to say, you know, I raised all this bluster about, you know, the stereotype of women liking to see him in his one underwear, but it's not a bad thing to look at, I must admit.
That wasn't what you said before you did the item.
The
She didn't say that at the beginning of all this, did you? I'm not doing that, she said.
Well, you know, I have to hold up the integrity of professional women.
Indeed.
But man, he sure does look good.
Good night.